Hey guys, welcome to our
That's how you're gonna
middle.
talk. If that's the volume you're going with, I'm just making sure.
I had to do that hard opening because you like to do that. Welcome back, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of Buddies Podcast. No.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another exhilarating episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. We've got a really great episode for you guys today as Miles and I talk about all of the films we've seen in 2024 so far in the horror sphere that really stood out to us, films that we would recommend. We even got into a couple films that we wouldn't necessarily recommend for all you guys out there, but it's just a casual, laid-back discussion between two dudes just talking about some horror films, and that's what you guys love to hear, so that's what we love to give you. Before we go ahead and get started, if you guys haven't already, please make sure you're subscribing to my YouTube channel, turning on notifications, subscribing to the show over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening to the show. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, leaving us a rating and a review if it allows you to do so. And with that, we're just gonna get right to the episode, you guys. So now let's get spooky. How's it going, boys and ghouls? Welcome back to another spine-tingling episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. And we're in for another exhilarating episode today, otherwise known as Buddy and Miles scroll through their Letterboxd accounts. I am here with the Rizzler himself, Midnight Miles Ackroyd, the legend, the myth, and everything in between.
I guess.
The man, the myth, yeah.
Wow, that was a really good that might be my favorite intro I've ever heard.
Your favorite intro?
Do.
I literally, for our Friday the 13th, I sang Man Behind the Mask and inserted your name into it.
All right, I'll put this as my second
Your
favorite.
second favorite.
All right, but this was good. You used the word exhilarating. You know, you really hyped me up. You called me a Rizzler. That's what the kids say nowadays or whatever. What's up? Here we are, I guess. Shit, I can't follow up a really good intro like that. I got my.
We're here to celebrate a momentous occasion. We're a little over halfway through the year, and Today, when this releases, it will be 100 days until Halloween. So we're hyping up, we're getting the Halloween season ready to go. Everyone knows July 5th technically starts the spooky season. It's the last major American holiday before Halloween. So we're full swing. It is the Halloween season. So we are, let's just cut the bullshit. We're cutting right to the fucking chase here, guys. Our top films we're going to go through basically everything we've seen this year, I would assume, or most things that we've seen in the horror sphere. I know Miles has seen way more than I have, so maybe we'll focus on a lot of the things that we've seen together or separately, or stuff that he thinks I should see that I haven't seen yet, and vice versa. But just a real laid-back discussion of just some of the shit that we've seen this year that we've liked or maybe not liked so much.
You can tell I feel like Buddy's really hype right now. He's really taking in that you were off today, so I feel like you're definitely ready to fucking do something, aka record, I guess.
I was off today, and now it's a little late in the evening, so if I don't bring the energy, I'm just worried I'm going to pass out instantly. That's also part of it.
I appreciate it because I worked today and then just rushed around, so it's like I need to feed off of some of your energy, some of that exhilarating energy that you have. That's the word. That's gonna be the word of the episode.
That's gonna be the word of the episode. Exhilarating.
Let's
see an exhilarating episode of Buddy's House of Horror.
Exhilarating the first half of 2024 was. So for horror, I guess if you're listening to this podcast, you should probably know that's what we're going to be talking about in general.
In general, something horror related. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it chronologically, starting with the shit we've seen in January up till now, or how do you want to do this?
I'm gonna ask you. I'll ask a very basic question. How do you feel so far? We'll keep it lower again. How do you feel so far in the first half of the year with what you've seen from horror? Do you have a good outlook on the rest of the year? How are you feeling about the current state of what you've been able to see this year? Because looming at the end of last year were the strikes. And there were already a bunch of big titles announced for this year. And I just want to know what you think of the year so far? Have you been a little disappointed? Have you been maybe a little surprised at some of the quality of the stuff coming out? Where do you feel like things fit in for you?
So calling back to 2023, which in general, it was just a great year for horror, in my opinion.
I agree.
A lot of stuff that either there was no hype behind, I was seeing for the first time, like based off of just a poster, or stuff that I knew walking into it was going to be a big deal, like Scream 6. But I just feel the horror this year, I don't know if it's because of 2023 or just this year in general, I've been very underwhelmed, to be honest, just as a whole with everything that I've seen. And it's not because of overhype, because I haven't really hyped myself up more this year than I would in any other year when horror comes out. But every film that I've seen this year, like there's been a couple that I've really liked, but there has not been a single film this year that I haven't had some sort of like problem with or major criticism with. Like I've still given out some 4 stars here and there. But like last year I thought there's a bunch of films I'd change maybe 1 or 2 things, but overall it's like a really, really great film. I'm still waiting for that really, really great film this year, which I think could happen because, I mean, spoilers, like Nosferatu, the remake, is my most anticipated film of the year. So very high expectations for that. But some of the films that I also had somewhat high expectations for this year have kind of missed the mark for me a little bit. I mean, what do you think? You love everything, so I don't know.
No, I don't. I got myself, but I think we were in agreement last year. One of the last episodes we did, we were both like pretty happy with 2023. I mean, I think maybe 2023 of the 2020s so far might be maybe the best year for film in general of the decade so far. I know we're only 3.5 years in. Technically 4, I guess.
Right.
4.5. I apologize, But 2023 was a really fun year. I kept using that word in the podcast we did. I just had a lot of fun going to the theater. This year, as I'm looking through some of my classic, we're on Letterboxd, as Buddy said, so I won't hide that. I've definitely given out a lot more 2.5 stars this year than I normally do. 2 to 2.5. I've seen a lot of stuff that the potential was there, but it just didn't land. I think I saw some stuff that made some good swings this year, that tried. I mean, I still have been pleasantly surprised that for the most part, most of the horror I've seen this year is pretty different from each other. You know what I mean? I haven't seen like maybe one recurring theme just dominating and that's all we're getting, as in other eras like the slasher or the teen slasher or, one subgenre is not dominating, honestly, the 2020s at all. So that is a bit refreshing. But I am a little underwhelmed with the year so far. But as you said, not to rub salt in the wound, but I have seen a little bit more than you have this year, and I've definitely given out a handful of good scores. But we're going to talk about that. So, what are you thinking over there, boss? What do you got going on after that? I mean, we're kind of on the same. I think any horror fan, for the most part, if you're a big horror fan with what's come out so far this year, I think there's been a handful of really good films, but I think the majority of the stuff, especially at the beginning of the year, was pretty middle of the road, which I can't say for 2023, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I mean, out of the films, because I'm looking at everything that I have. So I've gotten into a really good habit, actually, of whenever I watch a new release, I rank them amongst each other as I'm watching them. So it's not like at the end of the year when I'm making a top 10, I have to really think about what I like better than the next. I just do it right away.
Right.
So I've seen a total of 16 new releases in theaters this year, not all of them horror. But, like, looking at this list, like, there might only be, like, 4 or 5 that I would think about rewatching in my life.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff that was just like, okay, this was fine. It was, like, a good time first an only watch, I guess. But like a lot of the stuff for me, like as I said, just very underwhelming. And some of the stuff that I had like really high hopes for that I thought could have been like a 1 or 2 film of the year, not based around hype, but just based around the concept and the things that like when I go into a film, like I have certain boxes I like to like check in my mind of things that I like. Ones that I thought were going to check boxes for me just didn't. So this year, I guess, is a little bit unexpected. How do you want to start this? Do you want to go?
Do you want to? Because a lot of times, as the listeners know, we go off lists. Do you think? I think we're going to touch on really the first 6.5, 7 months, whatever, by the time this comes out of the year. I mean, we're going to try to, all the major releases maybe skim over that we've seen or ones that you haven't seen maybe briefly bring up. But do you think you could, looking at your list, do you think you could do like a loose, doesn't have to be exact order, but just 5 films that you would recommend? We can call it a top 5, but do you have 5 films you could recommend to the listeners?
Yeah, I have 5 I could recommend to the listeners.
You start. You
want to start it off? Okay. Do you want me? So I'll start with number 5 of films I could recommend. So one, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure you probably have. Lisa Frankenstein would be my number 5.
I did see Lisa Frankenstein.
So let's. Do you want to talk about them or just name the top 5 and then we'll break down some of them more later?
Well, it's just organic. Let's break some down now. Do you want to talk? I mean, Lisa Frankenstein going into this year was, especially because that was one that had trailers coming out toward the end of last year, so there was a little bit of hype and anticipation coming into the year, especially the beginning of the year when there was only a few horror releases, stuff like Night Swim and stuff like that. We're not really going to go into that too much. That was one of the ones that was very underwhelming. Great short film or maybe Twilight Zone episode, but it couldn't hit
just that early January spot. It's a death trap. If you're seeing a film in January, even sometimes early February, they're not going to be the best quality. And something like Night Swim, which I have not seen.
No,
I haven't seen Night Swim. I don't know if I will, but it's about swimming, guys. Like, come on, like you couldn't have stuck that in now. Like that could have came out this Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't know.
Night Swim, I think, is on Peacock, though. I think it's on there.
Yeah, it's exclusively on Peacock. Yeah.
Gil randomly really liked it. And I know Gil's not a harsh critic, but I didn't expect him. He watched it with his whole family, and his family loved it. So I know we're getting a hair off topic, bringing back to Lisa Frankenstein, but I think some things, and we'll touch about it later, I think maybe there's some good, I would say good, but all right, gateway horror films this year.
Yeah.
Maybe not made for us, really. Yeah. Honestly, like I can say that. It's not for me, but I watched it or you watched it. But anyways, back to Lisa Frankenstein. Give us your thoughts on that.
Again, just a film that checks a lot of boxes for me. Like, it has that 80s aesthetic. There's good music in it. There's cool posters in the background.
Right.
I like that this is also, like, as you were saying, it's kind of like a gateway thing. Like, it's not, like, scary or anything.
Yeah.
It kind of gives, like, Edward Scissorhand type vibes or something like that. Back to the golden age when Tim Burton was making halfway decent things. In general, I just liked the vibe of it. I liked it didn't take itself too seriously. And it was just a good time. Like, there's not a whole lot to really dissect about it. They do need to normalize more films where the leading man does not talk. That was a nice touch that they had there. Spoilers, by the way, for pretty much everything we're talking about.
Yeah. If you haven't seen, we'll try to keep them maybe not too spoiler. We're not gonna tell you the whole ending of a film or something, but there probably will be some plot devices brought up in this. Lisa Frankenstein, I really liked, but that was one. I still gave it a 3.5. I think maybe you gave it higher than me.
I think, like, across the board, like, I think even my wife included, everyone gave it. Oh, my wife gave it 4.5.
I thought one of you guys gave it pretty
high. But you're a
yeah.
3.5, I'm 3.5. Jared and Maisie are a 3.5. Like, this is just a solid, like, well-liked, like, not great, not masterpiece, but just a good, solid flick all the way around from everybody. So
I could have used maybe. I thought it was gonna go in almost a little bit weirder of territories, or maybe be a bit more gory. But I didn't realize until after I watched the film that it was rated PG-13.
Yeah.
I think there's I will say one thing about the year. I know we're going to go on tangents all over the place, but I'll try to tie it in or bring it back. This year, even the films I really liked, I feel so many of the horror films I watch have had a hard time ending their film, or the last 20 minutes have been questionable.
We will talk about that when we get to a couple
No, but
more.
I mean, I'm talking about even.
Sure.
I've been talking about even in general, where they
Yeah.
like change the tone. It's almost like they can get 75 to 85, 90% of the way there, and they just don't know how to bring the story home. You know, it's like the bases are loaded, they just can't.
Yeah.
They can't bring it in. But yeah, Lisa Frankenstein. That wouldn't be probably in like a 5 out of the ones I've seen. I'd recommend, but I would recommend that, especially to like Tim Burton fans, especially like teenagers. I'm kind of disappointed that didn't do more at the box office,
Right,
because if that was coming out when we were young, you know,
We would like it. Everyone would have been all over it.
yeah, and all over it. So, what do you just want to go through like your list so we talk about? Because there might be some crossover.
Yeah,
you know?
so the next one that I'll recommend, so like number 4, my 4th highest horror film of the year was actually Immaculate, which I was surprised
Loved
that I
it,
liked
yeah.
as much as I liked it as much as I did. I'm not the biggest fan of like religious based horror in general. I'm trying to think of the other film. Well, like Longlegs, for example. Like, not the biggest fan of stuff that's like that. But for some reason, Immaculate, like, it was a very simple story. There wasn't a whole lot to the plot. You could see whatever twists that were coming, like, a mile away. But it was just executed, like, really well
Very
for what
well.
it was.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be, if I put like a 10 together, that would probably be somewhere in my like 6 to 10.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Like I thought it was really good, you know, as well. I wish it wouldn't have came out a week after or a week before. I think it came out a week before the first Omen. So
There was a lot of overlap. Like, they were both playing at the same time.
that was kind of like some kind of bad marketing there. Kind of the target audience, it didn't work. But I loved Immaculate too. I thought it had great, like, people use like the word like, oh, Italian horror influence, this and that. I hear that a lot sometimes. Like, I don't really see it, but in this, I actually like saw, like, with some of the stuff and the camera angles and stuff that they were doing, I could feel like any kind of Euro religious horror, I could definitely see some influences and stuff. So
yeah. Again, not like a ton to say about it. I mean, this isn't a full breakdown review or anything. Number 3 is one that I actually thought I was going to like a little bit more. So even though it's my number 3, I was still a little disappointed in it. I saw The TV Glow. Again, something that checks a lot of boxes for me, but for some reason, like, something just missed the mark in it. And again, it's not an overhyped thing. I didn't go in, like, jumping up and down like this is going to be a masterpiece. But, like, there was just something about it that, like, didn't really hit the way I wanted it to hit. But it was still, like, completely solid. I still loved the atmosphere of it. I saw it in the Strongsville Mall, which is like a dead mall at night. So, like, when you're walking out of the theater, all the shops and shit are closed. It was literally the perfect atmosphere to watch the film. I watched it there intentionally because I knew that is what it was going to be like when I walked out of the theater. Right. But overall, I mean, I really loved the film, but it's not something that's like, oh, this is a masterpiece. I'm going to rewatch this every year. Like, it was just another 3.5, like, solid, like, really great vibey film. I know you've seen it. Yeah.
I saw it. I saw it early in the morning on a day that I had off, like 11 a.m. or something. So it really was almost like the like Saturday morning or Sunday morning type watch. I'd like to say, first of all, I love horror, but I don't overhype anything anymore. I just try to go in with an open mind with anything, and I don't know if that's just because I'm busier now as an adult. I don't sit and like read everything or like I read some stuff, but I was really hoping. I saw the TV Glow. Like I was like, this is pretty cool potential, pretty cool trailers. I was like, this could be, one of my favorite films of the year, but this is one of the ones where it got to the last 20 or 30 minutes and I understand what it was. I'd like to think I understand what it was trying to do at the end.
Yeah.
I get it, but it just, the whole thing didn't land for me. Like the last 30 minutes or so, it kind of just happens. Without listeners seeing the film, I don't know how else to describe it. Like there's a great build up the first hour and 15 minutes or so. I thought the first 70% of that film was great. Like with all, like, it was very odd, all the stuff that was going on, the effects. I love the parts, I guess, when they're sitting in like the bar and talking. There's musicians playing in the background. It's very Twin Peaks.
It does stop and become
Twin
a music video for like, because the band does 2 songs like almost in full, so it literally stops, and that's something I really liked about the film, because it reminds me of a lot of the like 80s SOV I would watch, where like they're just trying to film time, so they're like, fuck it, just go to a bar and record a band for 5 minutes.
Well, and also, but in Twin Peaks, like especially the Twin Peaks, like obviously the Return season, that is huge. I don't know if you've seen.
I haven't seen the Return. No.
And in the Return, there's a band like every fucking episode.
Oh, really?
Like the end credits are like might as well be like fucking SNL or something, basically. But, yeah, I don't know. I left. I was like, that was good, but it just didn't land for me either. You know. I would recommend it though. I think it's a very interesting watch. I recommended it to a friend the other day. He watched it. I haven't heard what he thought of it yet, but I like the general idea and the premise. I mean, there's some really cool effects, like truly great, like really interesting effects in it. If you like weird, anything kind of weird or bizarre in general, I definitely recommend.
So my number 2 that I could recommend is Maxine. So controversial film. A lot of people are actually, I would say it's getting more hate than it is love at this point for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what people were really expecting, because, I mean, obviously Pearl and X are completely different films, so the fact that this one is also completely different wasn't a shock to me. I know people wanted it to be a little bit more horror-based. I mean, it's very much a thriller with horror elements to it. But I don't know what people were really expecting, because I'm seeing like a lot of hate for it online. I don't think it's as good as X. I definitely think it's better than Pearl, looking back at it. The ending also, as we have talked about with some of these other films, the last 20-30 minutes really go off the rails. But in this case, I liked the ending. I thought the ending was one of the funniest, like, insane. Like, the ending made the film for me. Like, I thought it was, I mean, it's really gory, it's insane. You can argue it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it was great.
I gave Maxine, I was a little soft on the grading in regards to, I gave it a 4.5 on a first watch, because it kind of hit all the notes of things I like. It was the thriller, some police procedural, good gore, some taboo stuff, had the video store stuff, had all like the nasty side of LA in the 80s that we don't really see on film that much, you know. Had all the back lots and sets and stuff. I mean, and then the whole ending was very like 80s action film. So like, I just, for me, and watching it as a fan of all these different subgenres, especially stuff from the 80s, is like, it just kind of felt like him finding a way to mesh
everything
all
he
the
likes.
things that he likes. And then I also like the theme throughout, where it's like talking about, you know, horror and like horror culture and stuff, especially back then, being looked down upon, being the, you know, you're satanic, you're evil, like, look at this filth, look at this trash, how can anyone like it, you know, really being scorned by large groups of society that were more traditional, especially at the time. And I think that's like a big thing that even when he was growing up still, I mean, we were growing up, I mean, horror now in the past 20 years, not that it wasn't mainstream in the 80s, of course it was, because that's how we got here, but I mean, I think it's more widely accepted. You don't hear people people aren't running up to us and being like, you're evil, you're going to hell, you're satanic, because you're wearing, you're wearing a witch shirt. I'm wearing a Machine Girl shirt, which is, most people in America probably don't know what that is, but it's a highly, highly, highly gory film. I don't know, I'm getting on a tangent here, but I also like that theme of, like, sex, violence, murder, and, like, kind of where culture was at the time,
Yeah. Yeah, Maxine, I thought it was great. Give it a solid chance if you haven't yet. My number one for the year, I don't know where you've ranked this. I guarantee that you have seen it. There's no way you haven't seen Late Night with the Devil yet.
Oh, yeah, I saw it in theaters, yeah.
But that's my favorite one of the year. Like, talking about checking all my boxes. 70s, check. Late night TV, check. When I worked at a news station, I got to watch all these late night TV with stupid ass commercials just for, like, the aesthetic of it. Like, it was fucking great. Last 20-30 minutes, it does the same thing that we've said with all of these other films.
Yeah.
And something that has become something I expect when Shudder puts out a film. Your last 20 minutes are just going to be a gobbled up CG-infested mess. No matter what film they put out, just know in the last 10 minutes you're going to see the worst CG you've ever seen in your entire fucking life. And it's like, if you're a low-budget film, just stop doing it. Write an ending that you can actually film practically. Just stop doing it. Like, I just don't understand. But leading up to that, I thought it was one of the greatest films that I've seen. Well, obviously this year, but, like, even last year too. Like, one of the best films I've seen in recent years. Very controversial film upon its release because of the AI-generated images in it. People were boycotting the film, in which I don't think, as someone who is a creator, this is my opinion on the AI, specifically in this film. It's not a super big detriment to film in general. I just see it as laziness. I think it's stupid. I don't think that they should have done it, but I don't think that a stupid decision made by a director or a producer has anything to do with the 100+ other people who are working on the film. So I would say, because there's a lot of people who aren't seeing it because of that, and I would just say, don't let someone's stupid-ass decision stop you from seeing it, especially when it's just like, they use it just for, like, the title cards to go to the commercial, and it's like, you could have paid a film student $50 to do that, so it's just kind of stupid and lazy. But I don't know.
I'd like to think in that instance it was more somebody wanted to fuck around with, like, seeing if they could do how it would come out and how much money it would save. Kind of more of an experiment to the film, which I guess obviously, yeah, it might have saved them some money, but it might have cost them some money at the box office. I saw it in theaters with honestly, like, over a half full theater. It was in one of the bigger theaters, so I mean that was saying something, especially for an independent film. I'm pretty much on track with you. I don't think maybe on the first watch I loved it as much as you. I gave it a 4 stars. I mean, it was definitely trending towards maybe a 4.5, but just the end, it just didn't fully connect with me. I think I would say probably a lot of the audience, like, for the average person, could probably be like, it almost had like a weird epilogue feel to it. Like, it was almost like a, disconnected from the rest of the film. But I did like Late Night with the Devil a lot. I probably would, I think, put that, like, in my, like, if I had a full top 10, I don't think it'd make my top 5, which I guess, or whatever we're going to go over. But everything that I've seen, recap yours one more time, your top 5 for the audience. Just
so we've got Lisa Frankenstein, Immaculate, I Saw the TV Glow, Maxine, and then Late Night with the Devil.
I think I would equally recommend all those. I saw them. I had a great time at all of them. For me, I think I've seen about 65 new releases this year.
You're insane.
Between
making the most out of that fucking pass.
Some of those, though, were streaming, or, like, I've been in a few independent theaters. So, but I think it just told me I've seen 48 or 49 films at Regal this year.
Yeah.
So some of those were, I'd probably say like 6 or 7 of those were Fathom events. I've been making the most of them, randomly showing 20-year-old anime films in theaters, which is that's my favorite trend of 2024 so far. Thank you, Fathom Events and Regal. If I had to do like a top 5, though, I was looking at this.
We're gonna see if I've seen any of your top 5.
Oh,
so this will give me some solid recommendations.
Oh, you have. Here, I'm gonna. We're on our nice little app, Letterboxd. If you don't have it, I'd just still recommend it. It's just great. It's hard because there was a lot of stuff that had that, which we love on this podcast. It hit one festival, so Letterboxd brings it out that it was 2023, so it fucks up like half of my list. So I would say I'm not going to have these in an official order because I did have kind of an order in my mind earlier, but I didn't write them down. But I would say one that I want to recommend right off the top of my head is The First Omen,
which I haven't seen yet. So
I know.
When I went to see Immaculate, my goal was to do a double feature and watch both of them in the same day, but I can't remember what happened. I didn't end up being able to watch the second one or whatever. The timing didn't work out, so I still haven't seen it. I think that one's on Hulu now, so I'm going to have to watch it soon.
The First Omen probably was the most, I don't want to say the most surprising watch I've had this year, because I will say the trailers were very middle of the road. I liked the way the film was shot. They had the trailer that's infamously being shown backwards the entire time, or whatever. But I don't think the trailers did anything for the film, if I'm being honest, because the film is just way more batshit and way more just... It's not just your typical exorcism possession film in regards to what has been coming out the past couple decades, I would say, there are a few sequences in the film that I was kind of blown away that 20th Century Studios, aka now owned by Disney, was signed off on. I was very happy. I said, okay, they are going to still make some edgy content, because if you look at Fox over the years, producing stuff like the Alien series, Predator, so on and so forth. They put out a lot of stuff that was, for being as mainstream as it was, kind of hard, some hardcore content in there. I think if you're a fan of the series, it goes without saying. This is, it's a great sequel, prequel. It is a prequel. I so happen to be reading both of the novelizations this year. I don't even want to call them novelizations. I guess the second one I would, but the original Omen book was written before the film came out. So I read both the books, so it was nice. Like, the prequel had just a couple little tiny things that I was like, oh, shit, because I had just finished reading the books. But I know we're not going to go too far into it, because I know we were kind of trying to blow through these, but I really recommend the First Omen, even if you're not a big religious horror. I'm not even talking about Buddy, but in general, I just think it captures, you want to talk about aesthetic compared to Late Night at the Devil. This legitimately looked like an old film. Like it looked like, I don't know if it's because of it being shot in Europe. It had a fairly high budget for horror coming out recently. It said something like $20 to $30 million budget. So, which isn't high, but a lot for a
horror film.
Yeah, lately horror's been about 10 to 20. You're lucky you might get a $20 or $20 million horror film. But it looks great. It has a really just weird aesthetic all the way through. But I know I'm going on a tangent. But please, I recommend.
No, I do plan on watching. Now that it's on Hulu, I plan on watching it. So I like The First Omen, not The First Omen, the one you're talking about. The original, yes. The original Omen, yes. I do like. A lot of the other ones, not so much. First one has one of the most iconic kills ever with the fucking decapitation. I don't know.
I just had to do that
get much better than that.
For horror trivia, he had 10. He did a video one, but it was 10 kills, and I was the only one that got 10 out of 10 on that.
Hard.
It was. He had a couple good ones in there. City of the Living Dead, Omen. I forget he had High Tension.
Okay.
So yeah, he had a good variety on that. You know, it was
I still got to
nice.
make my return. It's been several months since I've been able to make it to a horror trivia.
Yes.
Miles is holding it down for the both of us as second place champs every time now.
I actually this time I missed second place by a couple points. I got third. Competition. There was like.
It's hard when it's just one of you,
yeah.
obviously. It's hard when it's just the two of us. Like, because some of these cats are coming in groups of 4 or 5, and like if 2 or 3 of them know their shit, it's like we're fucked.
I have done 3 this year alone. The one before this, I tied in first place, and the people, because they had fucked up the score or whatever, they gave them one they didn't, but I tied in first place. The team that tied with me had 6 people on the team. So they were all from Kent. They were all Kent students. It was weird that they came up to that. I don't know if there was one team of 5 people this time. I think they got 4th behind me.
Really?
But they were like 6 points at least less than, you know. There was a big divide. It was like the top 3 and then everyone else. But anyways, iconic kill. I'm going to have to talk about, I'm going to throw In a Violent Nature out there. Now, I would like, this is one that's been hyped, kind of just like Late Night of the Devil, like earlier in the year was. I don't think In a Violent Nature's for everyone. I'm pretty sure
it
that... It
can't be for everyone.
No.
There's just no way.
I'm pretty sure that I stand alone on this hill for the most part of people I know. As far as liking it, I gave it a 4 out of 5. It has a lot... It has its own faults, its own stuff. For me, I am a huge slasher head. I love slasher films. I've confessed my love for Jason Voorhees on this podcast. If you're going to dissect a subgenre of horror and it's a slasher, I'm going to be into it. I like the way that things were presented. Obviously, the kills, I mean, there were a couple of the kills were some of the most insane shit I've seen on screen in a long time, if I'm being honest. I'm not even going to talk about the one because I want people to just see it. A woman did go, "I can't do this." She screamed it in the theater. I know I told you that. That was the only film this year that I've seen where people were having audible reactions to what was being shown on the screen. Yeah. Multiple people in my theater. It wasn't just that one. But I told you I think that it is the Skinamarink of 2024, except for it's not for you. You know what I mean? Like I get...
Because like for me, like I enjoyed watching it. I liked being able to watch it. It's not one that I think, like, it doesn't have much replay value for me as an entire film.
I can agree with
a lot of the good parts I would watch again. But, I mean, in general, I think it, just due to the nature of the film, it lacks a lot of substance. So, it does beg the question, what does Jason Voorhees do when he's not killing people? Which is exactly what would happen here. He's wandering around in the woods.
Yeah, that's what he's doing,
which was kind of fucking hard. But it doesn't make for the most entertaining experience for an hour and a half.
It's not for... a lot of the stuff that's come out this year, I don't know if it's just this year, but I'm like, hey, if it's not for you, it's not for you. You know what I mean? That's like the stuff that you recommended, I would say, besides maybe I saw a TV Glow, I would say I think the average horror fan maybe could gravitate towards, but there's certain things I think that I've seen this year I'm just like, well, I don't think that's for me, but I don't think that's for everyone to really enjoy, you know?
It was probably the least enjoyable theater going experience of my year, not because of the film, but literally in the row behind me, there were 3 film bros just talking the entire fucking movie.
Oh yeah, you mentioned
like not even like
awful.
discussing the film, just having a conversation.
Awful.
And I was like, this is in like the majority of the film is pretty quiet, so I'm just listening to these fucking dudes talk the whole fucking movie.
Yep.
So that sucked.
That seems to be a new thing. I told you the other 2 weeks ago that I went to the theater 3 nights in a row, mind you, and somebody let their kid get on TikTok in the middle of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is one of my favorite films ever. I'm still very proud of myself for not ripping this kid and his mom and his other aunt or whatever a new asshole. They were the family that has the large buckets of popcorn, there's shit flying everywhere. Like, it's just, you're just like, oh God, you know. But hey, I'm glad that they probably spent $100-some bringing their family for their kid to get on TikTok.
Insane.
But anyways,
but I mean, just a little bit of wasted potential in the film. Like, I feel like you could have done things
agree with that.
a little bit differently. Like, minor spoiler, like, there's a kill that involves water, and it just kind of happens, and then that's it. Like, there's no real. One of the biggest problems with this, there's no real suspense with the film.
Yeah, I can.
So
it's not a scary film. It's almost just like you're a voyeur. You're watching whatever happens unfold, and you either like are into it or you're bored. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
But if I were rewriting this film, you could have done it the same concept and just tweaked things here or there. And for my rating, you probably could have got like a 3.5 star from me instead of a 2.5 with some changes. Like, there was potential there that just didn't hit.
It's hard because I'm pretty sure that this director, he's been like a writer and a producer on some of this stuff, because I looked up some of the stuff, because the people that did the special effects have done effects on a bunch of big indie films over the past like decade. So I think he's been kind of part of a crew, and now this is his first like foray into like, I am writing and directing a feature. So I think this year a lot of what we're seeing is newer filmmakers. They're trying. It's not easy.
Yeah.
I
know it's not easy. Yeah.
It's not. I'm excited to see where a lot of the group of directors that are directed this year, because there are a lot of new ones, what's their next film going to be?
Yeah.
Because I think maybe in 2 or 3 years we might have like a fucking crazy good year of just horror if these filmmakers don't move on to other genres.
Yeah.
You brought up Maxine already. I'm not doing an exact top, like, you know, ranked top 5, but Maxine, like I said, I gave it a 4.5. Like I said, I am going to bop around. Unfortunately, Letterboxd, like I said, did take things out of place. I probably am going to bring up Long Legs next.
Okay. Just missed my top 5. I will say that. So that was, when I look at my list, that one's on the 6th spot.
Long Legs, both Long Legs and Maxine, they came out a week apart. Probably two of the most anticipated horror or horror adjacent films of the year, and they're pretty divisive amongst the horror community with like what they like, what they want. Some people, the Maxine thing, to tag on what you're saying, I mean, I saw some people giving Maxine like 2.5 out of 5, saying this and that. I don't know. I brought this up to you recently, you know, maybe within the past year, but I think people are just getting a little too desensitized. I mean, here's a little spoiler for Maxine. So if you want to just fast forward 30 seconds if you don't want to hear it. She makes a man suck a gun like a cock and then crushes his balls into the pavement, and it zooms in and shows all of it. That's giving you... I mean, I was right there. I was like, oh, okay, you know, and stuff like that. I mean, I don't need every film to kill every fucking character, dismember them in a billion ways, do this and that. If that's all you need out of your films, there are gore and torture porn stuff out there constantly that's just still borderline shit, that if that's what you need to see to enjoy it, that's fine. But I'm also here for some good storytelling, or what I think is good storytelling. You know, I just... And let's be fair, there's some pretty varied kills throughout Maxine. I mean, they're all different kinds of kills. Like, I don't know, what did she need to do? Kill 400 men in it for it to be, you know, or kill all of Hollywood for, you know, to get that? But I don't know. That's my tangent. I think people are just getting a little desensitized with what they're looking for out of film. But Longlegs. Let's you go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Longlegs for me, like, just something about it didn't fully hit all the way, and I'm not sure why. I don't know what I was really looking for in it, but I just know when I was watching it, it just wasn't connecting with me the way that I wanted it to. Because again, like, wasn't super hype on anything this year, but like when you kind of watch the trailers and you're thinking about the film, you're looking at who's involved with the film. I'm going in thinking, okay, this could be top 5, top whatever potential for the year, and for me, it just wasn't. His legs weren't that long. I'll say that for starters. A little false advertisement there.
It's hard, but he almost every scene he was in, he was alone, or like the camera would focus on him, so you have no fucking reference of like anything. Yeah. But I know what you mean. I'm just being a dick. But
the thing that really killed the film for me is towards the end, not necessarily ending of the film, but at about the hour 10-ish mark, there's a 10-minute just info dump scene.
Yep.
Which I think you could have just completely cut from the film.
Yep.
Because you don't need to explain every single aspect of what's going on.
I think they could have taken that and cut it down. Here's the hard thing. Because they were trying to drive home a point for the last 10 minutes, I think trying to get some sort of emotional reaction, they did that massive info dump. But the problem is you could have done half of, like, if it's 10 minutes, make it 5 minutes, cut out the little, it didn't need, the unfortunate thing is he literally gave like a verbatim, like somebody was doing a voiceover almost the entire thing, which it didn't need to have every single thing explained. I mean, we could kind of read between the lines a little bit and understand. Am I right? I mean,
and like the film itself, it wasn't hard really to understand, and it kind of like demystifies a lot of the stuff when you're explaining it like that, because you could have left there's a ball, and there's a ball. Just know there's a ball. You could have just left that at what it is, and it can be up to your own interpretation. You don't need to have that explained to have... It doesn't add anything really to the story. It adds to, like, the lore, but you don't need to know all of that to know what's going on. It should be up to the audience to put these things together. And in general, like, the whole film, not that it's a good or a bad thing, but it's just an incredibly predictable film as it is.
Yes.
Like, literally... I like it. I don't want to give away plot points specifically, but like as you're watching the film, like I'm literally sitting there like, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. They're introducing this person's wife and this daughter because it connects to this. I bet at the end this is going to happen, and that's exactly what happens. If you don't want, I have to talk about this with Miles. So if you want spoilers, just skip ahead the next minute or two or whatever. If it's your own fault if you're listening this far. Okay. So... Is it the 14th? If you're born on the 14th, that's when this happens to the families, right? If the child's born on the 14th.
On the 14th, correct.
So, the key investigator on this crime, like the police chief dude, is putting all this together. He's saying, okay, all these people's families are getting murdered when they have a daughter that's born on the 14th. He knows in his own brain, hey, I have a daughter. It's her birthday coming up, and it's the 14th. And he makes... no effort to get out of this situation. Zero effort whatsoever. True. And again, it's just so predictable. Like the characters in this make no sense to me. I don't know. That's my biggest thing with this was that whole story arc. Like he has no sense of urgency even in this to get anything sorted out. And I get once Longlegs is actually no longer an issue, he still just doesn't care. Yeah. And it doesn't make any sense.
I feel like he personifies the lack of, how do I want to put this? So he's a career FBI guy. I think a lot of the career guys...
It could be saying a larger statement about the police
incompetence. With him... I think they had been working on these cases so long. Look at the main FBI guy in the beginning of the film. Not going to say what happens, but they're like, oh, calm down. I think they think, oh, we'll get on his trail. We'll find him in the next 6 months. Not in the next 6 days, basically. Like, I think the timeline, like he says in one scene, and I'm not defending him because everything he said is correct, but he goes, we were cold. Like, the trail was cold as fucking hell. And then the last 4 days, things have gone just 200 and, bringing in Monroe's character. What was her name? I can't remember
her name. I don't know.
But anyways, the main lead FBI agent. A couple of the things that I
Lee
thought,
Harker.
Lee. I was thinking it was Lee, but I couldn't. So a couple of things that I didn't think they were going to do. One thing I thought was a dream sequence when he's standing out with his luggage, long legs.
Right.
And the guys, they just show up out of nowhere. There was no investigating. They're like, the one guy stands up, zooms in on his finger, and he's like, I'm going to need you to sit the fuck down or something. And then it just cuts to him being arrested. I thought that was going to be a dream sequence or like in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think the film, I want to see it again because I've seen a few people seen it again and given it like better scores or felt like they got more out of it. Maybe the same score. I feel like there is a weird tone throughout the entire film where it's almost like, yeah, this is serious, but we want you to just realize how silly this all is. I can't grab. It's like I'm trying to grab. It's easy to follow, but there's underlying themes and tone that I'm like, I don't know. There's just something that I feel like I need to watch it again to get all that. I mean, Nicolas Cage is off his fucking rocker. There's certain devices in the plot that I wish would have happened later or this or that. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I don't think if I even on a second watch I would give it any higher because there are obvious issues. I think the biggest thing for me giving it that high is I think that the ride until the end is pretty good. Like I love the way that the film is shot. That's one of the things. I think
so. One of the things I
incredible.
really like about the film is there's a lot of. I'm trying to be sort of vague. There's a lot of potential for things to be happening.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of scenes where she's like sitting in her house and there's lots of open windows or you can see a big opening in the back and it's like what is going to happen in this situation. There's a lot of opportunities for jump scares. A lot of times you're not getting those jump scares, but you're getting a lot of suspense. I think this film really had a ton of suspense, which I think was lacking in some of the other films which we mentioned. But I love the way it was shot. I love the tone. I love a lot of elements in this film, but then I also hate a lot of elements in this film too. So for me, that's why it kind of ends up being that 2.5, 3 star film. I think I gave it 3 stars.
I think you did, yeah.
But it's another one of those films where like you need to go into it with an open mind. And we can rib Jared a little bit.
That's fine.
When you're walking into a film and you're on Letterboxd and you're like, oh, Nicolas Cage is in this, it's gonna suck. Or, oh, my friend gave this 1 star, this film's gonna suck. If you're going in with like this overly negative attitude, like there's no way you're gonna be able to
you're not gonna like anything. He did that. He fell asleep, so he couldn't even rate with Max Team 2. This is something that I brought up in a prior podcast. I think we have certain friends that they just don't like modern films. They have a bias to certain decades. That's okay, but why are you spending the money to go? I want my friends to go back. I have a good time watching Jared have meltdowns sometimes, but like.
But even then, like, he gave the film 2 stars, and he was going on a rant about it, but he was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even really think it was that bad. Like, he was doing it for the bit, kind of.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing is a bit. I also just think that one reason, I guess I'll say, I'm kind of, this will be a little tangent here. I love seeing films in theaters because I feel like it gives you an uninterrupted chance to just live in whatever story the creators are trying to present. I shut my phone completely off. I don't fucking care. this sounds fucked, but if somebody dies in the middle of the film, well, I wasn't going to make it to whatever anyways, probably in that hour and a half, you know? If the world crashes and burns, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's that bad if I went and had a good time to the theater and I fucking die in a nuclear bomb after. I mean, I'm just throwing all that shit out there. I go the one time a day, I want to be immersed in that film, immersed in what I'm doing. I think we all have shorter attention spans nowadays. But I think so many people now, and I guess I will bring it up with Jared, it's like they have to have food when they watch something. They have to be on their phone. They have to do all these fucking things except for be involved in what they're watching. That is their own fucking choice. That's the own way they want to live their life. But I would say to most of those people, just watch something at home. If you don't care and you're not even going to try to engage in what is being presented to you, or try to just open your mind. Like, when I am in the theater, my mind's chaotic all day long. I literally just try to take everything away and just live in whatever that world is.
No, I have to shut my fucking phone off, even if I'm watching something here, because, like, in age, my attention span has gotten worse. Like, I feel like
too.
I feel like everyone's like, oh, kids, they have, like, no attention span. But, like, when I was a fucking kid, I could be, like, lasered into a fucking film or video game or whatever. I'm not like that anymore, so I have to turn my fucking phone off half the time.
Yeah. Back on the long legs thing for probably the final thing before I give a couple more, whatever. Long legs is again, I'll use the word otherworldly. There were all these beautiful shots of just almost like, how do I word this? I love the very eerie shots where it's like you said, with some of the open spaces, open, lone hallways. I love the scene where she's calling her mom from, like, the police station. It's a faraway shot down.
Yeah.
Like, I like the way he used space, and he made things that were mundane just look like they were in another time or another place. You know what I mean? Like,
well, the early 90s were another time.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. But, I don't know. I can agree with... I liked it a little bit more than everyone on that, but I can agree that it had its issues. The same issue, like with that info dump, but I think that he was trying to do it for the ending, like the end ending. I think he was trying to get a reaction from what the characters have to do. That was one of my gripes with actually, like, Saltburn that came out last year. Is everything like that but in that regard, I'm glad Longlegs wasn't like that, where it felt like Saltburn, they weren't thinking we were smart enough. They're like, ho, you guys couldn't, like, they did it in a way to me where it was like, oh, you guys didn't pick up on this, did you? Or that whole, like, last 5-10 minutes. And I was like, no, like, the context clues were all there, like, and it kind of like...
Saltburn was pretty self-explanatory, but I mean, I get maybe putting it in there because, I mean, you don't necessarily go into Saltburn expecting something crazy, like, based upon the trailers, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but...
You know what I'm saying? I guess that's kind of, like, I hope that doesn't become a new thing where people are just, oh, by the way, hold on, here's before the ending, before the last 5 minutes, let's tell you everything that happened behind the scenes or from the story, and it's like, no, just stop. That's dumb. That's just stupid.
That's how you get people to stop watching your film for the second time. Yes. Because you should want them to go back on their own and see all the things that they missed instead of saying, like, hey, here's what you missed.
Yes. Now here, I guess what would be, I'm going to say that this probably would be my number one horror film of the year, and I know you haven't seen this. I did recommend, where is it? But it came out technically last year. Is it really that far back? Well, anyways, I know it. But I wanted to get the title right. Damn it.
Is it his number one film? He doesn't know the title, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, it's a long... Does Letterboxd not have it in horror? Because I'll fucking kill myself. I don't...
You just go to your diary. When did you watch it?
Recently. I had horror selected. Why would it not? I guess maybe they have it in something else. Apparently, Letterboxd doesn't think this is a horror film. I think this is absolutely maybe a horror comedy or horror coming of age. But humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person, I think, is the best horror film of this year.
You've told me a little bit. It's in my watch list now. You've told me a little bit about it.
They were getting it at the Nightlight Theater in Akron, and they dropped like an Instagram post once every other month, like coming soon. But it was to the point where it was like I'd never seen them go like 3 months of doing this, where I'm like, okay, when is this coming out? They have limited show times because they only have one screen. I can only really probably see it on the weekend. You know, it's kind of like I was like, I'm trying to catch this. They ended up having 4 showings of it. One of them was a mid-afternoon showing on a Saturday, and I was able to get tickets for me. The theater was sold out. I mean, did sell out for me and Shelby, but I loved it. I mean, I gave it 4.5. It's not perfect. I put it up there just a hair above Maxine. But I don't know about you. I think we both like coming-of-age films if they're done right. I think there can be some sort of something special about that genre. But basically a woman, the whole plot is a woman, a girl that is a vampire, but she doesn't want to kill people, but she has to feed to live, obviously.
Right.
So her whole gimmick then, she realizes, is trying to find people that already want to die, basically to assist them with death, or when they die, get some of their blood. So she does have, I guess I would say, another lead to kind of balance her out that is a human. So there's kind of like a taboo friendship, almost romance, and it's just really good. I don't want to spoil too much. It's got good comedy bits. I don't know. I laughed. I was invested. I wouldn't say it's an overly gory film or anything like that. There is some gore, but I think it checks all the boxes for someone that just, if you like horror, I mean, if you're looking to be scared or horrified, it's not. I don't think it's a scary film, but I love the world it was in.
Right.
So I'm hoping that you guys will watch it.
No, I want to watch it soon.
Yeah,
It's like since you told me, because I hadn't heard about it until you were like, "Hey, I watched this thing," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then so I put it in my watch list and I looked at a couple of things about it. But
I feel like it flew. Like I saw it on a couple things back in like January, and then I feel like it just flew like we say things fly under the radar, but I mean I feel like this was just like so under the radar, like that. I don't know. I hope that people can find it on like streaming or rental or whatever. I loved it. I can't say enough good things about it.
So we talked about our top 5.
Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily the film you thought was the worst, but what film disappointed you the most this year?
Ooh.
Because it's an easy one for me, and it's one that we have both seen together actually.
All right, you drop the
stop motion just didn't do it.
Yeah. Ooh,
it just didn't do it.
You know, I know you got and people like to poke like, "Oh, I'm easy on grading everything," but when stuff doesn't really hit, it doesn't hit, and stop motion just didn't. I was really hoping for something with that too, and everyone's really been praising that film online, like certain things I found, like I just didn't connect with me at all.
For me, it's just surprising because I love stop motion as an art form.
Yeah.
Like, I really appreciate the craft. I don't know what it was. I mean, there wasn't enough stop motion in it, number one. But there was just something about the story, something about the tone, just everything just didn't hit.
Everyone was so unlikable. Like, there was not one character in there that you were like, could feel anything for. Like, honestly,
I did feel myself relating to the main character quite a bit, because I also feel that I don't have my own original ideas, and that was the only thing in the film that stuck with me whatsoever, because everything she does is like, I need to do this for my mom, or I don't know what to do next in the story because there's a girl in the apartment building who's giving her all of her ideas,
right?
Which is why she's doing the shit she does, so she can figure out where the story's going. So that was like the only thing about the film that I was like, okay, I can relate to this. But everything else, it was just kind of cliched for what it was. It wasn't that original. And again, I think if you're calling your film stop motion, you should really be delivering on the stop motion.
Yeah. I would say it's hard because there'd be sequences where it'd be stop motion for a few. It was all bursts. It was all like 2 to 3 minute bursts. Get another 5 to 10 minutes of human interactions like that, which was bad for the most part. I mean, I know I'm very lenient on some stuff, but I just remember we watched it. Your wife was there, and I was like, I wonder if they're gonna like it. I was like, am I alone? Where I'm just not. I will say that I found her character and some of the stuff she went through interesting, but the problem was how she reacted to the world and things around her was awful, and everyone around her, for the most part, was fairly awful. I mean, really, honestly.
No, I mean, they really were. Like, all the characters were super unlikable. Like, I don't know. It's so... First off, I've never heard of a stop-motion, like, company like that. Like, there was, like... The weird thing about this film is there was this whole stop-motion, like, underground culture that they were into.
Exactly.
I'm just like, what are we doing?
That's very... I was going to say it's very, like, something that, like, especially, like, early 90s films would do, where they're like, oh, there's this subculture... Let's make a film about it, and it only ever works halfway. It's kind of like like Hackers or like some of the other stuff. I love Hackers, by the way, but like you know what I mean.
We're all stop motion artists, and we're out to get each other. It's like what?
And we're all happen to be based in the same city, which would never fucking happen in a million. No, but yeah, I can agree. Yeah, I know I can agree on that. So I'm looking at other stuff. We talked about Night Swim being... I didn't have really expectations for that, thank God. But, let me think what else. I mean, the second most successful horror film of the year was Strangers Part 1, and that was about as mid as you can get. About as cliche as you can get. And Rennie Harlan directed that. He directed one of my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. He's directing all 3 of them.
I did not like this film at all.
My girlfriend's, one of her favorite horror series is The Strangers. She loves the first 2 a lot. I think the first 2 are great. I actually think the Strangers concept, more so the first one than the second one, is pretty horrifying. Home invasion is a scary, real thing, and it's terrifying. I think that is actually something that's terrifying. But this one, it just felt like the pilot to a TV episode. I kept saying that, where I'm like, it just hitting all the beats. It was very like, this should be on HBO Max, like new TV series. Like, they should have just done a Strangers TV series, released 6 episodes. It probably would have worked better that way, honestly.
Yeah.
Than I don't know. I have hope because the people involved in the second and third one, because I feel like they were hindered by it being a trilogy. I will say they didn't pull a David Gordon Green Halloween where they threw everything that could possibly work in the first film. They didn't
throw a whole lot, I'll say.
Yeah, so no, they didn't. I mean, it was, so that was definitely, I'm kind of blown away it made as much money as it did. Tarot was another one that was like, that's definitely like made for kids gateway. That was pretty bad. But they made a bunch of practical creatures and also made CG versions. Like, the creatures in the film were fucking awesome, but the film around it, I guess that's good. Similar to stop motion. When it's the actual, like, what you're there for, it's great. But unfortunately, there's another hour of each of those films. It's just a fucking borderline dog shit at times. So, I mean, did you see Abigail? You didn't see Abigail?
I haven't seen Abigail yet. I know
it's
on
streaming.
Yeah,
now.
it's on Blu-ray actually now. It came out last week on Blu-ray too. But yeah, I want to see that soon.
Sting was another one. That spider one in the apartment. Have you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that one. No.
Sting was really entertaining. I went to a film premiere back in, I think it was April, for a film called An Invader by Mickey Keating. He did Darling, was a big film of his a few years back. It's like a black and white horror thriller.
Oh, I don't know.
Kind of similar to like Polanski type vein. You have Invader in my
watch list.
So It's produced by Joe Swanberg. Joe Swanberg was there in person, came to the Nightlight to premiere it. And it's a super, like, DIY. He did a Q&A, a whole talk after. They made the film for, like, $170,000. It was very tense. Probably, I would say, the scariest film I've seen this year. And it was something, obviously, home invasion-esque, like I just talked about.
Right.
So I would really recommend Invader. It's only 70 minutes. So as soon as it starts...
It's already 5 stars for me.
See.
Already.
As soon as it starts... But look at the reviews are all
lower
over the place. Well, I mean, but even, like... Normally, I don't see films that have every single person is, for the most part, anywhere from a 4-star to a half-star. I mean, pretty all over the place. But I'm not sure when it's coming out to stream. I think that he said that they were going to do a full year of touring. He was touring all over America.
Oh, really?
And then they were going to sell it. But that was a good seminar. I was in the middle of the week. I actually drove to Akron in the middle of the week. Davis is a big Joe Swanberg fan, so I actually bought him a ticket to that. But I should have tried to get you to go too, but it was like a very last minute. I decided the morning of type deal.
Yeah.
But it was a good, like, as far as like independent filmmaking. He talked for like a half hour, kind of
good. Yeah.
Really talking about what it was like. He was on set for Godzilla and Kong. He talked about, he's like, oh, I never want to do that. Like, he was just like, he's like, it was cool. He's like, it's cool watching Adam Wingard do it, but he's like, I just don't. He's like, you just have to be really chill and understand that they are gonna fuck with you constantly. Mm-hmm. And he was explaining how, like, I guess the beginning of Godzilla, they had a whole nother, like, half of a concept for it. And then they went and spent like $10 million on it, and then the producer's like, "Oh, we don't use that at all." So they just threw away $10 million. So he's like, in the studio system like that, you just have to be, if you want to make it, especially for the big budget stuff, you just have to be almost. You're the biggest cog in the machine, but like you just kind of have to go with the punches.
Yeah.
And he said it's not for him. He actually told a story. I don't want to get on a tangent, but he told a story about how he turned down 2 major motion pictures, one from Lionsgate and one from New Line, where he was actually signed on to be the director, went through all the pre-production, and he told both of them, he's like, neither of these films are going to be good. I don't want to do them. So I have to give him credit. That's fucking, to turn down money from New Line and Lionsgate, probably maybe fucked his career. I mean, he's been doing all right with independent cinema, but that's the first time I've heard in a long time a director just say, no,
this is gonna
just
suck.
Walked away. He told them, he's like, it's not going to be good if you do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess both the productions got canceled.
Oh, really?
So yeah, they were both comedies, I guess. But yeah, Invader. I think, especially you. I think that as far as it has to do with, I guess I'll bring up, of someone traveling to see their family, and the main language in that area is not their main language. Mm-hmm. So there's language barrier, and then they can't get a hold of their family.
Gotcha.
So it becomes something where it's like you realize you can be around a ton of people or in an area, but everything is so foreign and so scary to you because you can't communicate with anyone. No one's helping you. No one gives a shit that you're there. And then there's a whole other plot of some crazy shit going on. So it's definitely a good, I don't know, a good story on isolation, but also like how terrifying human beings can be. I don't know. I'm talking it up a lot, but I gave it 3.5. I had a hard time giving it more than that just based on how straightforward the content and honestly the length, you know, I mean, to be honest. What else? I don't recommend The Exorcism with Russell Crowe, even though it had 3 of my probably favorite scenes of the year. I think I talked to him off mic, but one that I am blown away was greenlit, but it was nonetheless very, very funny. I think maybe I told you lines. If not, I might tell you off of this. But I'm just looking like, Arcadian that just came out and Shudder with Nicholas.
Right.
I thought that was great. I actually was like blown away. I was able to see that in theaters. I mean, it's straightforward, but what it does, like you talked about, like Immaculate. It's great at what it does, and it has very highly original creatures. I would recommend that. And for like a Shudder one, if you're looking to kill 90 minutes, definitely, I would say watch Arcadian. But all right, is there? What else? What else we got going on here?
I don't know, man. Is there anything else from this year that?
Is there anything that you are still looking forward to for the year?
I mean, Cuckoo's coming out soon.
Cuckoo, I'm
looking
very
for
excited
that.
for.
Nosferatu, obviously, which we talked about.
I'm praying we get Salem's Lot apparently on Max for October. That's still the thing. I'm praying we get that this year. I really want to see that adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Latency. I wanted to see that, but then after seeing your review, I was like, eh.
It's another one of those. I gave a lot of stuff 2.5 stars this year that wasn't necessarily bad. It was just a fine one-time watch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Latency Latency is another one. Even at 2.5, it's just hard because there are moments in that film where there's not a lot going on.
Yeah.
You know? We both saw Destroy All Neighbors, which I think was the first Shudder original of the year. That was...
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it was fine. Like, that was an alright one-time watch.
We saw Deer Camp 86 together.
We did.
Which was a very memorable theater-going experience for me. One of my favorite times at the theater with Miles. It's a showing at like 10:30 p.m.
Something.
We go see it at a theater that's like a half hour away from our houses. We're the only two people in the theater, except for one man, like a madman, is in the front row by himself.
And this is a bigger theater.
At a 10:30 p.m. show in a big-ass theater that no one is in. And here's the thing, he bought the ticket before us. So when we were picking our tickets, we're like, wow, there's one seat taken in the front row, though. Like, that must be a mistake.
Yeah,
like
there's broken. The seat's broken.
Like there's no way. Like, they have that blocked out because you can't sit there. Sure enough, there's a fucking guy in that seat when we get in the theater, so... a legend.
Real.
The main character in that film looked identical to Leon fucking Kennedy.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That was another one. We talked about it after we left, but that was like, because I told you, I said, I saw Fangoria's, like, they must have maybe, like, known one of the producers, sent me an email or something.
Yeah.
I didn't even watch a trailer. I said, Regal's got this independent horror film for a week. You want to just go fucking check it out, you know? Oddity comes out this week. Have you seen the trailers for that?
I'm probably going to see that tomorrow.
Hard. Yeah. I'm excited to see. That was one I was looking for. Oddity. Hopefully Salem's Lot. Obviously Nosferatu. Probably may even see that if it's incredible twice before the year ends because it's that last week of the year. Get a little more out of that Regal pass right at the end of the year. What else? There were a couple. Cuckoo, which they've been showing trailers like fairly heavily for that. I'm hoping that does well. It looks very interesting. I'm excited.
One I wanted to see, but it might still be in a couple theaters. But I wanted to see Watchers, but I don't know.
It's not. I've looked. I missed that. I was gonna say I missed that. I know you weren't a fan of Quiet Place Day One. A Quiet Place Day One.
Here's the thing. I have the same opinion about that one as I do the other two. Like, I don't think they're anything super special. So, like, if you like the first two, you'll like this one as well. I also saw it at the drive-in, which, as we know, isn't ideal for watching any film if you're trying to actually watch it.
Yeah.
But, like,
I think there's certain films, as we talked about on the one, I think the previous podcast, that work great for a drive-in. I'm not sure A Quiet Place would be. I don't know why. I'm just not sure that would be one that I would go to the drive-in for. I mean, talked about Salem's Lot, Oddity, Cuckoo, Nosferatu. I'm trying to think really what else is coming out the rest of the year. Well, here's the thing. Here's things that they're supposed to be coming out that I forgot, but there's been no trailers yet, and it's the middle of July. Are we getting Strangers Part 2 for around Halloween? Because that was the original thing. It was supposed to be 2 films this year.
Really?
No trailer yet. Now, are they just going to wait till September and then just bomb the shit out? Maybe. Wasn't Saw 11 supposed to come out in October?
yeah, I think it was supposed to.
There's nothing
originally,
yet.
but there's nothing.
Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think really what else is. I mean, horror-wise, they've kind of had the big ones that got hype already come out. Basically, the 1-2 punch, especially with Maxine and Longlegs, and even the week before that. I mean, because Quiet Place is kind of horror-esque. So honestly, you got those 3 back-to-back weeks. I mean, they kind of would have been a great October run, honestly, or at least for long. I would at least maybe put Longlegs, but I think maybe we'll have a better October than you think if they do dump what I just talked about.
There's going to be something unexpected that's going to come out, whether it's an indie film or whatever this year that is going to be good around Halloween time for sure.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
What it is yet is to be determined. So,
well, I don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic for that. I have enjoyed a lot over the past couple months. I would say the first few months of the year, though, were definitely underwhelming enough where I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be the low year for the decade, you know? But I don't know. I might be alone in that because, like you said, the stuff that I liked, you know, has been very divisive across the board. You know, you got people giving something 4.5, giving it 2.5. I mean, yeah. So
well, around this time next year, we're going to be making probably our top 10 of the decade so far because we've been midway through the decade at that point.
That's true,
which is insane. So I don't know. I'm optimistic.
So I think we're not Jared. We're both optimistic on the rest of the year. I'm excited to see what's coming out. But on that note, we're in spooky season now. Do you want to talk about some of the stuff that you're going to be a part of in October? And then, I'm going to be on some of those casts too. And then maybe announce one other thing that we have talked about off air.
So as far as October goes, I am going to be making more episodes, obviously. What a lot of them are yet to be determined. Last year I didn't get to do a lot of the shows that I wanted to do, so some of these are going to be ones from last year that I had already started and didn't finish or whatever. For some reason I didn't do a review of VHS 85 when it came out, or 84, or whatever year it was. For some reason I just didn't talk about it at all, so I don't know if I'm going to do a double episode where I talk about that and the new one
that's one got coming out the other week. Is it Beyond? VHS Beyond?
VHS Beyond, which I'm optimistic for as well. In general, I love the VHS series, even if I don't really like a lot of the films. I love the series as a concept and a lot of the shorts. One thing I would like to do, and I don't know when it would be, maybe when the series is all said and done, but I don't know if it's really dying anytime soon. Not ranking the films, but ranking each short in order.
I know you've talked
would
about
be
that.
Absolutely fucking insane.
I would be down to do that, but that's something that I think that I would maybe honestly have to watch all the films twice.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe literally probably just to really get it, because I will say one current events thing tagging onto this. I saw that Legendary is fucking pulling a Trick or Treat all over again. The rumors going on, and some things leaked out in the news today that Legendary feels that the Toxic Avenger remake is unreleasable and unmarketable.
I saw that they posted about it, but I am friends with some reviewers who have already seen it.
I know some people haven't seen it,
and they're basically I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, it's gotten good. I didn't realize it'd been to multiple festivals, but I think it's gotten overall good reactions.
Yeah, I don't know what the controversy. I don't know. It's a Toxic Avenger film. What do you expect? I don't.
I read a couple of the clips from the director, and he's like, honestly, they let me do whatever I want, and I would bring them things, and he's like, they're not going to go for this, and they said, yeah, go ahead and do that. So he's like, I thought maybe they would tell us to cut more or do more, and they haven't, they didn't, but I don't know what's going on with it, So it's kind of one of those things. Are we going to get a chopped and screwed version of it where it's missing 20 fucking minutes or what? if they do something where they fucking try to re-edit it to some sort of fucking teen bullshit, then they might as well not
even
release it. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. That was one I brought that up because that was one I was thinking that maybe by the end of the year we would see.
If we see it, like that's the thing.
But yeah,
because like I don't.
So, anyways, did we? I know I kind of.
We haven't announced if what you're talking about is what you're talking. We haven't announced anything.
What we're doing for the franchise for the year?
Oh, I don't think we've announced what we're doing for the franchise.
I think we should just do some announcements to get people. Yeah, I mean,
if you've listened this long to get you hype, when we did our Halloween ranking, it was our first ranking. We had just started doing shows together. We weren't doing them in depth. We didn't rewatch any of the films.
No.
And the franchise wasn't even finished. Now that Halloween has ended, we're going to be re-ranking all of our Halloween films. I don't know where Miles is currently with his list, but my list is going to be a lot different than the first time around. And I feel like it's going to be in similar vein to like our Saw podcast and Friday the 13th, where it's probably going to be a little bit more of a lengthy episode. Like, I think our original one was, like, about as long as the one we just made. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, like, super in-depth or anything.
Not sure why I did, but last year, in the middle of doing all the Saw rewatches leading up to Saw 10, I did happen to rewatch almost the entire Halloween series, especially the ones I haven't watched in quite a few years, like Halloween 4, 5, the Rob Zombie Halloween, stuff like that. Just stuff I really, honestly, a couple of them I hadn't seen in probably a decade. So I'm kind of stoked. I am stoked that we're doing this because now I'm going to rewatch everything again and get it. It's going to be very fresh. Like, everything's going to be fresh.
Yeah.
Opinion's going to be fresh and stuff like that.
I'm about midway through rewatching the series right now. It's July. I've actually got part 6 sitting over there because that's the next one I have to do.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting show.
Now, I know we joked about doing, and I don't even know this, so I'm kind of asking on air, are we going the extra mile and doing a second franchise? Do you think? Do you think we're going to do a short second franchise, or I don't know?
We might have to play it by ear. We might have to keep the audience in a little bit of suspense.
All right.
Depends when we get this Halloween one done, and if we have time to do another franchise after that.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it. I had to ask. I asked on air.
I would say, as WWE says, never say never.
Okay.
But
there we go. Now, I guess it's kind of doesn't have to be a closer in case you got anything to plug, but something that I had talked to you about personally recently was doing a new series spin-off podcast, which Buddy said, okay.
I was like, okay.
He was fine with. I'm going to explain a little bit I'm going to briefly explain, not a huge tangent. So, me and Buddy both have, like, probably a lot of listeners. We have DVDs, we have Blu-rays, we have VHS. We have stuff. We have stuff that are sitting on our shelves that maybe we have only watched once. Maybe we have never watched. I have a copy of something sitting over there that I have never watched.
But we're about to, probably.
I'm hoping. I'm worried. Buddy's got to go to bed, but that's why we're going to wrap this up here so we can.
So
actually watch
what we're about to watch could be the pilot episode for the new show we're doing. Could be.
I'm just gonna keep it right on the nose. It's gonna be called Hidden Horror, and these are gonna be shorter episodes for some of you. So, and we're not gonna be going off on 10, 15 films, all this stuff. We are gonna watch something that one of us or both of us has on some form of physical media that's in our libraries that we either have not seen or haven't seen in years, and so it can either be a first-time watch, you kind of get the gist of what I just said. But I wanted it to be on physical media, kind of an excuse for both of us to maybe get through some things in our collection that, if we're being honest, maybe they'd sit there for another couple of years before we. Yeah. Who knows? How long? I mean, it's just like anything. When you start to amass a big enough collection, how often
Like,
do you
you're
look
never
at,
gonna,
you
like-
know, yeah, I mean,
I may or may not have bought in tapes today, and who knows if I'll ever watch them.
okay, yeah, there you go. So this is going to kind of be a reason to look at our collections and go, I've been thinking about that one. Oh, I haven't watched that one since I was 15 years old. Go in, kind of like fast, half-hour, 45-minute podcast. We're just going to talk about the film, why we loved it, what we hated, why you should maybe watch it. We're not gonna spoil the whole thing.
Maybe how you can watch it.
How you can watch it.
Because some of the, I mean, Jared and I did the whole Lost on VHS thing where, like, you could only watch it on the VHS. Of course, now since we've made the series, most of those films are now available on Blu-ray.
Yes.
But just how you can get your hands on the film, maybe even get a little bit on, like, the fucking, like, if it has, like, bonus features, like what you can get on the fucking DVD or whatever.
Hopefully a little bit of maybe, like, few minutes in each episode of, like, a quick backstory about it, like when it was released, you know, things like that.
Or, like, how you ended up getting the DVD.
Yes,
like, if there's a story behind it, like... They're not going to be like 2-hour episodes because we're going to try to reel it into just
30. I'm trying to do 30 to 45 minutes so these are something you can listen to on your way to work or on your way, you know, part of it on your way or on your lunch break. Something that will be fun for both of us but doesn't have to be so, I don't want to say taxing, but so time involved.
Yeah, or maybe if we could hammer out like 4 of them in a night or something instead of doing one podcast.
Don't tell them. Yeah, we'll probably do it that way. But I'm excited. I'm mostly excited for the actual watching part of it. But also, I do want to do a little bit of some behind the scenes, like digging on some of them. But should be a good time. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I've got a couple on there of like some shit I've wanted to watch with you for years or like get you to watch. So like this is going to be a good opportunity for us to even like turn each other on to some films that maybe we haven't seen in years or stuff we've never heard of or stuff that like Miles could bring over a film like, oh, I've never seen this one, but I've seen it before and like the other way around or whatever. Yeah. So my phone's going off, so that's probably the sign to wrap this one up. So
well, thank you for having me on again. I can't even believe we've already lived through. I was going to make a poor joke earlier, like, wow, we survived halfway through this fucking year. Yeah. Here we go. But I'm always glad to be here and talk horror with you. I really appreciate it. I hope the listeners enjoy this episode, and next time we probably see them is spooky season, you know?
With spooky season, it's always spooky season on the House of Horror. But with that, we will see you guys in the next one. But that's about it for this time, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. Just a quick little amendment, a little anecdote, some things we didn't talk about in this episode for some reason. For some reason, we didn't talk about Alien Romulus. We didn't talk about Terrifier 3. There were a lot of films that are coming out really soon that we're excited to see. For some reason, we didn't bring it up at all. So just a quick amendment. As soon as we stopped recording, we're like, shit, we didn't even talk about Terrifier 3. So just a shout out that yes, we are excited for Terrifier 3, obviously, no doubt. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to the show. And I'm just gonna stop yapping, and now it's time for all of you guys to stay spooky out there, be cool to each other, be nice, happy 100 days until Halloween, and yeah, stay spooky.